Hey guys, welcome to Torch Tales. One more episode here, and we just happen to be in FabTech, Mexico right now. And I'm very honored and very pleased to have a very good friend. I've known this person for 11 years, the 11 years that I've been with the company that I work for, a manufacturing company. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to this person is because not only the expertise and the experience that he has in the industry, but also the travels. And he's also a foodie as big as I am. So his name is Richard Apodaca, and Richard, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And giving me these few minutes of going into your life, but not just per se the industry of it, but the personal roadmap that he's traveled literally so far for the last many years that we'll touch into the interview. So Richard, again, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Frank.
Awesome. So I know some of these answers, and that's the great thing about talking to some of my friends in the industry. But I want him to say some of these himself. So Richard, where are you from?
Good question.
Yeah, this is going to take the whole podcast. Yeah.
Because people have often asked me that, and they guess different places. But originally, I'm from New Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico, here in the U.S. My dad was in the Foreign Service and worked in the embassies in Peru, Brazil, at least while I was with the family. So, some people, when I speak, they think I'm Peruvian, some think I'm Brazilian, but I've lived in the U.S. most of my life. So I am from New Mexico originally, and now I'm in Fort Lauderdale. Been there about 27 years.
So both your parents were Hispanics, or?
Both Hispanic parents. Ancestry actually originally from Spain. My last name Apodaca.
It just keeps getting better and better. Yeah.
My last name Apodaca is actually Basque origin from the northern part of Spain. They settled in the northern part or in New Mexico, and that's where the Apodaca name comes from. And as you know, there is a city in Mexico.
So. Guys, I just learned this today. So we were having some traffic in the booth, and someone just happened to mention the city Apodaca in Mexico here, nearby. So the minute I heard it, I'm like, whoa, what? Is that where you're from? Is that? So I kind of got thrown for a loop there, and then I learned that he has his own town. So again, go figure, right?
And it's interesting because when I'm in Mexico, a lot of times when they ask for my name, I'll say Richard Apodaca. And they go, oh, so you're from Apodaca. I said, no, my last name is Apodaca. So.
Well, there you go. That's exactly what I thought. I also know that, of course, here we are speaking English, but you speak Spanish as well, and you also speak Portuguese, right?
Also, correct.
So how did you pick up Portuguese?
Easy. Having lived in Peru for 12 years, I just grew up in Peru, and I was 3 years old when we moved down there. So 3 to 15, and picked up Spanish there. Speaking fluently. Then we moved to Brazil. I lived in Brazil 3 years, and it was easy to pick up Portuguese just because it's so similar.
Correct. So Peru, Brazil, the U.S.
and the U.S.
Right. So those are the three countries that you've lived on.
Correct.
But many different cities, right?
Yes.
So in the U.S., did you come straight from Brazil to Fort Lauderdale or from Peru?
From the U.S., I came to go to college. I went to St. Louis University. So,
oh, that's right. You lived in St. Louis as well.
Yes. So that's my entry point there. Interesting. Having lived overseas in Peru and Latin America, big sport there, soccer.
Correct.
Okay.
Hey, people say it's the biggest sport in the world.
It is.
That's another debate. That's another show. Yeah.
And back in the day, decades ago, soccer wasn't very well known in the U.S. But St. Louis was a hotbed for soccer.
Really? And I wonder why.
Actually, a lot of the Catholic schools in St. Louis played soccer.
Huh.
Mainly, with private schools, sometimes you have limited resources and funds, and football equiment is very
correct.
expensive.
Yeah.
So they kind of deviated to soccer, and also just the influence of Italian immigrants in the area also played soccer.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So here you are, Florida. Were you already in the industry before you got to the U.S.? Did you know what the industry was? Meaning welding, HVAC, refrigeration. It's a mix of industries. Because Richard, he handles the export department for Uniweld for many years, and we'll touch on that in a few minutes. But did you know about the industry before? What's your background when it comes to this industry?
Yeah, not at all. I did not know. I mean, coming to the U.S., didn't know anything about the welding industry and the air conditioning and ventilation industry, which I'm also involved in.
Yeah.
So didn't know anything about it.
So let's go back now. How old were you when you came into the U.S.? And well, you went to college, so that means you went to
college.
teens.
So yeah, I'm 20. Well, going to college, graduating from high school. I was 18, 19.
So before this industry, what did you do? How did you make money?
How did I make money?
Yeah.
Right from college, I got into international business.
All right.
So, and actually in college, my mindset was I'd go into the foreign service like my father.
Gotcha.
And after giving it some thought, I thought it's just bureaucracy. It wouldn't be as exciting, and I deviated towards the business world.
Got it.
And so my first job was actually with a company that manufactures lift trucks, Hyster.
Okay.
And I saw an ad for an international sales correspondent. Speak Spanish. And I thought, hey,
So,
right here.
Sorry to interrupt, but guys, by now, if you guys have seen a few of the interviews, you guys know there's no script, there's no guidelines, so it's going to be forward, backwards, up and down. Sorry, judge me. It is what it is. Plus, it's my show. I do whatever I want. I'm interested because you say you saw an ad. Back in the day, what was that? A magazine, a newspaper?
A newspaper.
That's what I thought, right?
I just happened to be looking for it. Wasn't really looking specifically, but that caught the requirements and the profile they had. That looks interesting. Yeah, let me apply.
All right. Guys, by the way, like we mentioned in the beginning, we are a FabTech Mexico, so that's why all the background noise, we are in the middle of the floor. We probably have about 2 more hours to go, so I'll try to kill the noise, as much as we can, doing all the magic that softwares do nowadays, but still, it's a live show. Here we are. This is what it takes. Now, tell me, when did you start in the industry and how did that come about?
So once I was in the international sales industry, that first company, I worked there about 8 years. And it was in a little town, Danville, Illinois.
Okay.
And I wanted to not live there all my life, really.
So you already knew that was not going to be
that wasn't going to be
the end living arrangement,
there,
right? Yeah.
So I started looking and looked for other international sales positions, and then I found one in the HVAC industry, which was with Copeland compressors, and so I got into that. That was in 1989.
89.
Yeah.
So I guess the common theme here, it's not the actual industry itself, it's anything that had to do with international anything. So it could have been whatever, as long as you had some internationality into it. So I get it. So was it because the travel? Was it because you spoke different languages? Like, what was the appeal for the international part of when you saw those ads?
Well, I think I could obviously utilize the skills that I have. Number one is the language.
Yeah.
And it's at a time also when there aren't that many people in the business sector that have these skills, so to speak. And I'm in the Midwest at the time, so
that
even less
put you apart.
Yes.
You were part of this very small group of people.
So I had unique qualifications, and then in addition to the language, one of the big aspects of it is understanding the culture. So it's a little bit different, understanding business culture.
Being abroad, not speaking the language, not eating the food, I get it, because as you know, I'm in the same world as you are now, mainly domestically, and I just happen to be here in Mexico, actually supporting the export department, and Richard was nice enough to allow me to come and help out. This is the first time in FabTech Mexico. I helped you back in 2018 for the HR show, which we were debating if it was Fab Tech, but he won the battle. It was actually HR, so sorry, I lost. What was your first time coming, once you are in the industry, in this industry, when was the first time you came to Mexico to represent a company?
That was with my first job, and that was probably 83, somewhere around there, 80, 83, 85. Was my first overseas trip.
That means I was not even 10 years old, just saying. I'm not putting age out there. I'm only saying that because he's a good sport, and his stories, his history, his experience, that counts for something, and I respect that a lot. Well, another conversation that we've had is that he's a $2 million mile club for his travels, throughout American Airlines, or in American Airlines, and I want to touch on that. You always try to travel American Airlines only, as much as you can.
Ever since I discovered the benefits that you have with the programs, yes. Then I started consolidating on one airline.
Gotcha. And so how many countries have you been? I know it's probably going to be hard, but
it's close to 30 different countries.
30.
Yes.
All right. Without pissing anybody off,
Here comes the dangerous part.
we have customers everywhere, right? Yeah. And relationships that we build. But I'm not going to say the worst country you've ever visited or the best country you ever visited. But so I'm going to rephrase the question. A country that once you got there, you were very surprised in a positive way, and very surprised in a negative way. If you, you can take the fifth, but I would wish you answer something.
That's a great question, and surprises there have been in several countries actually. Maybe two that come to mind right now. Singapore. I was just impressed, maybe not surprised, but just impressed with the neatness of the city, the cleanliness of the city, the organization of the city, and just coming right out of the airport on into the city. That impacted me.
All right. And how long ago was that?
Oof. Yeah, I'm not at this age. All the years blend together. So
I just want to put them in the spot.
It might have been 6 years ago or so.
All right. And do you dare to comment on the one that you were not that impressed with?
Let me give you another unique experience that impressed me, and this was in Brazil. And the name of the city now escapes me. But it was in the southern part of Brazil, and it's very heavily influenced by German immigrants.
Okay.
And when you get to that city, again, it's just the order, the cleanliness. I did not know I was in the architecture is very German style, and I did not know I was in Brazil.
So that means that they probably settled there a long time ago. Exactly. The architecture itself, it's also very German looking.
Yes.
Huh, that's interesting.
And those are interesting things you find out when you travel.
Yeah, I agree. So we're going to pass on the
negative
on the negative one. So food. This is something that is very dear to our heart. And especially his heart, because his heart and he's way bigger than me, so he can definitely consume a little bit more than me. And this is kudos to Richard. We've gone out, for a long time, and. Brother, I gotta say, I've never seen anyone that he gets so excited and so happy with food, all kinds of food, whatever it is, and the amount of food that this friend here can intake. You guys gotta see it. What is your go-to kind of food that you go, oh, this warms me up, this feels home, this is what I want after a week out there traveling? Like what is that?
What warms you after I've been a week out traveling, or what I want to find while I'm traveling?
Yeah, like after you've traveled and we go to restaurants and we entertain customers and all that. Like once you get home, like what is the one thing that you just can't wait to have once you're home.
No, there's, especially if you've been gone a while, and it depends what country I've been in.
Yeah.
But nothing like just having a nice, good hamburger when you get back.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of like your go-to hamburger?
Something simple. It'll be that or pizza, but
right.
yeah, not anything complicated.
And when you are traveling and you find well, he can always find something he can eat. That's not going to be a problem.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. But what is one thing that you tried somewhere, whether because you were with customers and you didn't want to offend anyone, that you tried it and you said, I hope I don't have to try this ever again? Is there such a thing even?
If I've tried something, I'm sure I have. I can't recall what it might have been. But yeah, you do get into some positions where you're probably not going to want to. You're not excited about eating what they're serving you. But I typically go ahead and stomach it. I think even here in Mexico, I've eaten the gusano, the little worms, the worms, and I don't know, they had crickets and other things.
Yeah, they have in places like Mexico and Colombia, they have either the roasted ants or crickets, which they'll coat them with like some chili powder or whatever, just to kind of make it seem like you're just eating something crunchy.
That's a food I had that. Okay, I'm not going to be ordering it again.
All right. I know you have kids, right?
Yes.
How many?
Two.
A boy and a girl?
Boy and girl.
And I think you started your career traveling when they were very little, or not born, or right when they were, 3-4 months, whatever that is. I do as much travel. Well, I do, U.S. travel, domestic. It's hard to think where I'm at right now. When you were traveling so much and your kids were little, what was the hardest thing that you thought, oh, I'm missing this, I'm missing that? Like, what would you say if you needed to point your finger at one single thing? What would you say that was?
I think probably in the early years, because they do grow up so fast.
Yes.
And I can give you a perfect example. My daughter, when she was born, she was undernourished. My wife breastfed her, but she wasn't getting the nourishment.
Okay.
And I had to take a trip, and back in those days, I took trips for 3 weeks at a time.
Really?
So here's my newborn daughter, and maybe at 6 weeks, maybe I'm taking a 3-week trip.
Wow.
And during that period of time, she wasn't being nourished correctly, so she went on formula.
I see.
And I come back, and now she's been very well nourished.
Really?
And
so that's not my daughter, that's not the one I left, right?
It was a transformation. There was this little butterball that came back that I would have no idea if she was just sitting there that would have been my daughter, because she looks so different. So,
the crazy thing about, especially back then, is that it's not like now, video calls and all this technology that, we have access to, where I'm assuming, and I can only assume again, back in the day, you would have to rely on the phone calls, and then there's not much of a visual, so it's just like you're out 3 weeks, you're missing everything in 3 weeks. And you've been married for how long?
What year is this?
So there we go. I don't think any guy gets this right.
No, I do, and it's actually my wife that gets it wrong. So we're in May now.
We are in May 2023.
Next month, it'll be 43 years.
Wow, 43 years. I'm 45. Just saying. 43 years. And where did you guys meet?
We met in college in St.
College
Louis.
in St. Louis, really?
St. Louis, yes.
Also, so she kind of followed you.
She's followed me everywhere I've gone.
Yeah. Wow, she's an angel, So
no, absolutely, she's that's been our lifestyle. I mean, I've been in international sales since we've been married, and so my wife, my kids, that's what they know. They know Dad would be gone, and.
Got it. So
it becomes natural. Not that you ever get fully used to it, because you want to be together with a family. But I'd say in a certain way that also strengthens the family because you appreciate even more so the
The
time
moment,
you have
the
together.
moments, that I can understand that because I went through that. My kids were 4, 6 or so, and I started traveling, and then I had to stop because of that same thing. I couldn't handle it, so I had to. You know what? I'm going to take a break so I can be around. But I was able to do so in a way where I didn't sacrifice, my income. Because at the end of the day, it's important. We always say money's not everything. Well, when you don't have rent or lights or car payments, it's very easy to say that. Going back now to the industry, Richard, going to all these shows, in different parts of the world, U.S., you name it, and representing Uniweld as a company for so many years, what would you say the biggest transition has been from where you started, how you saw the industry back then, somewhere in the middle, 10, 15 years ago, and now where we see the industry now? What would you say it's the one, two, three things that you can say back then started getting better or worse, and now where is that now?
Well, definitely there has been a transformation over the years. And when I got back into the industry, you might say there wasn't as much competition, so to speak.
Gotcha.
But with globalization, and that's something that's inevitable. We manufacture all over the world. Not just speaking of Uniweld, but in general terms, all companies supply themselves from different sources, whereas in the past it used to be maybe one, two sources. Now you have a globe to source from, and that's brought about more competitors in that respect.
Yeah, that definitely. I can tell you just from my 11-year experience in the industry, you are 100% right. What I have noticed is that 5, 7 years ago, there was a slowdown in the industry overall, and now, for whatever reasons, after COVID, not sure if that had to do anything with it, but I see a new spike on business, or at least opportunities, stuff that maybe were not there right before COVID. And I think every company is riding that wave for the last 3, 4 years. And but yeah, it's a global world. Everyone has access with their phone. They can check things right away on the spot. So you always have to be upfront, competing. And have to be quick to be successful in this industry whatsoever. So that many years in the industry, and again, how many with Uniweld as a whole?
Uniweld, 25 years now.
25 years. Were you in the same location out of Fort Lauderdale, that same place, same building 25 years ago?
I have been, yes.
You have been?
Yes.
All right. So you were already working for the company when Uniweld had a big fire?
That is correct. Yes.
Really? How was that? How was that transition from the company almost lost it all?
Yes.
And I heard the stories that you guys had to bunch yourselves into one office, one little area. Tell me a little bit about that.
That definitely, obviously, with an incident like that, everyone's going to be worrying about the company, and the future of the company, and would we pull through? And fortunately, the owners, there is a lot of history behind Uniweld. Established in 1949.
Correct.
And they persevered to push forward and make that transition. And during that period of time, we're all crammed in one building, 2 buildings really. We had a satellite building as well. But you have to learn to really work shoulder to shoulder with everybody, basically. So there were those types of things in the office itself, and fortunately, within a few days of the fire, we're shipping again, and then things just begin to get on track slowly and moving forward.
Wow, yeah, definitely. You hear many stories like that, and you hear companies that they'll just cash the check, the insurance check, and run with it and say, "Hey, I'm good. Thank you. I'll see you later." So I give them kudos for that as well, because definitely it's nice to see that they believe in the history and the story of their dad establishing the company and the two sons or the three sons of the family. It's a family company, family owned. So definitely it's nice to see that. When you started with Uniweld, did you start right away? Hey, you are part of the export department. You know, you are. Was there an export department to begin with when you started?
There was, but there was a little void with someone really directing it.
Okay.
So there had been export sales over the past, and then there was a void with someone actually managing that. So then I came in and took it from there.
Gotcha. And I know that you've managed different reps, sales force, direct hires, and so on. And we lost a good friend last year, and definitely he handled the Middle East. And how long did you know Samer? And again, I'm mentioning his name because I also want to make sure that we talk about him a little because he deserves that. Samuel was the life of the party. If he was here right now, he'd be jumping on that thing and just making faces, just trying to make us laugh, or behind the camera.
Or he'd be on the other side of the camera making faces.
That was Samer. So, when did you meet Samer?
Man, again, the years just blend together. But he was with the company a little about 20 years. So
in the Middle East, or
he was
in the U.S.
with Uniweld, living in Lebanon.
All right.
So actually, okay, so that's when I met him with Uniweld, when he came over to work with Uniweld.
Oh, okay.
And he was referred by a mutual friend,
Gotcha.
whom I also knew.
Okay.
And coincidentally, I had met Samer at our mutual friend's wedding back several years back. I didn't get to know Samer then. We had the wedding and parted ways. Correct. But then he joined Uniweld about 20 years ago, and we built a lifelong friendship.
So yeah, I've only known, I knew Samer for 10 years, 10.5 years. Once you really got to know Samer, and I gotta laugh, was he always the Samer that I've always known for 10 years?
Always.
Always.
It was like that at the wedding. I mean, he stood out at the wedding as well. So
yeah, for those of you that knew Samer, you guys know exactly what we're trying to say here. And again, Samer, rest in peace. You were always a good person. So kudos to you, indeed. Richard, coming back all the way now to where we are, 2023, so many years in the industry, so many things you've seen. It's hard not to think or to think future with that, whether that's long term, short term. What do you see that future wise for the industry, yourself? And again, this is one of those questions where there's no real right answer because you never know. But what do you think?
I think in the industry we're in both welding and HVAC, I think education and safety plays a big role, especially in the welding industry. And even here at the show, you hear different people talk about different issues they may have had. And we're talking with flames, with high pressures, flammable gases, and I think it's important to educate. And in the process of educating on safety, proper use of equipment, through doing that, you actually gain. That's how you grow your business. You seek partners overseas that understand that and are willing to work together to expand the knowledge of the technicians and contractors that are using the equipment, and with that, you continue to grow in a safe manner.
Yeah, I got to say, one of the things that I appreciate about Richard, and that I'm always very honored to spend time with him, is because he's a. Are you considered a baby boomer?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Actually.
All right. The reason where I'm going with this is that he's a baby boomer / millennial. And why I say that is because he believes in technology, he believes in social media, and the power that you have to either good or bad, it is what it is. It's just like anything. However, how you use something, you can turn it into a positive or a negative thing. And I think you understand the value of it, because we always talk about it. He asks questions, about how you do this, how to kind of stay, in front of the era, whether it's talking to millennials, whether it's talking to X, whether it's talking to whatever the generations are nowadays. So I give you kudos on that. But lastly, before we end this conversation, what is your take on millennials, and is it true everything they say about they're very hard to work with, they don't understand, or they're completely different? But then again, weren't the hippies saying that about, or the baby boomers saying that for the, about the hippies, and or vice versa? Like, wasn't there always a name for each generation, and the one before that always complained about them? So, what's your take on this whole millennial, they suck kind of thing?
Obviously, we very easily stereotype different groups.
Yeah, correct.
And go along with that. And yes, there are certain catchphrases for every stereotype.
Yep.
We'll say millennials is one.
Yep.
And yes, it's true that some of the things you said apply to certain millennials, but certainly not to all of them. And I think millennials, are looking for those opportunities to actually grow in a way that they're going to enjoy.
Correct.
Growing, and that's the part. Whereas I think maybe baby boomers, it wasn't so much, the priority wasn't on, okay, we need to enjoy our job that we're going to do. It was, we need to have a job so we can feed our families. I think was the first thought. But that might be one of the differences I see, is that as they look to get into the job market, they're looking for something that at least they will enjoy. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love this job. I love what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm so blessed to be able to be in this position, to have had to travel overseas. I mean, I love what I'm doing. I'm not retired yet. Loving it. Nothing wrong with loving your job.
And that's exactly how I see it. It's not an age thing specifically. It's a personality. It's a background. It's your education, where you come from. What you were taught as a kid, and your surroundings as you were growing up. The baby boomers created pretty much most of the wealth in the world. They created all the companies, most of the companies, and so on. And a lot of the millennials are second, third generation taking over these companies. And if that communication is not close, if that gap, doesn't get closer than what it is today, then all that knowledge, all that history is going to die with a lot of people that can find a way to communicate with them. And that goes for every ethnicity, religion, groups, age groups, you name it. It's unfortunate that we do, but it is what it is. Richard, I want to thank you again. I can't wait to do many, many other shows with you. Travel and find ourselves eating tables worth of foods, not plates, tables worth of foods. And someday I'll record him at his best, and so you guys can see what I mean. Thank you again for having me here. Come support you in this show that it's part of the export department. And better yet, thank you for your friendship.
Okay.
Likewise,
Frank, and thank you for coming to Mexico. It's we learn off of each other, and you've been a great assistance, and definitely added another page to the industry that I've been a part of for a while now.
Well, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
On the next one, next city, next table, next restaurant, whatever it is, I'll see you guys there. Thank you.
Take care.